Hello and welcome to this presentation from the Urban Penguin, where we introduce you to the very basics, and I mean the very basics, of object-oriented programming and why you should be using object-oriented programming rather than procedural code. Hello and welcome to my Rocky Linux 9.2 system, partly my command line and partly you can see I have an editor open. And that's because we're going to be taking a little bit of a look at Python and having an understanding of why we use object-oriented programming. And no, it's not just to make it more difficult. The idea of object-oriented programming is it allows us to group attributes together inside of namespaces. And namespaces are a honking good idea. Well, who said so? Tim Peters, that's who. If we go through and take a look at the module this, so Python 3, -m this, we get the 20 rules of the Python Zen, only 19 of which, though, are written out. And take a look at the last rule, Rule 19. Namespaces are one honking great idea. Let's do more of this. And if we want to drill down just to take a look at that on its own, we'll just pipe the output of Python through to grep looking for name. And we're going to be able to see then that namespaces are most definitely one honking great idea. But how do we implement them? Great question. And that's what we're going to take a look at. So we can move across to our editor. And to be able to use objects, we have to have classes. Classes become templates from which we can create instances of our objects. So we define then our class. Classes should begin with an uppercase character. So here we're creating the class fish. At the moment, we're not putting any code in, so we can just use the keyword pass. We can go through and describe then fish1. So this is a namespace. We've got the namespace now, fish1, being an instance of our fish class. We can try and print it out. There won't be a lot to show you to begin with, but if I then go through and print fish1, we can see what will happen when I go through and save this. And then back in my command line, I can go through and use Python 3, and I called this fish.py, fishpy if you like, fishpy. But we can see then that we're getting the memory location of the object printing out. And that's because we haven't converted our object through to a string yet, but we'll see that in a few moments. We're also not really making a use of our namespace. So if we start putting in some properties or attributes, we can have the fish1.name being Wanda, a fish called Wanda. And if you remember from a fish called Wanda, Wanda was an angelfish. So if we then put fish1.type, and this is our namespaces, both name and type are located underneath fish1. If we created another fish, so let's have fish2, we can still use those same attributes, name and type, but they're going to be included now underneath the namespace of fish2. So fish2.name can be, we've got to do it, haven't we, Nemo, and then fish2 dot and type, and Nemo was a clownfish. So we still have our two fishes, and we have the namespace then fish1 and fish2. If we try and print fish2, we're still going to get the same type of deal where we're just going to see the memory location of the fish2 object. But all that's going to do is prove that they are separate objects, which we could probably guess by their names anyway. Fish1 and fish2, two completely separate namespaces. If we want to do a little bit more, then if we take out our pass and create a new method, and this is a special method called dunder string or dunder str. Dunder meaning double underscore. and we're going to be working on the object itself. And we can then go through and return, and we should be returning a string. And we can do something, again, really simple. We'll do a little bit more in a few moments, but just to see how done to string is working, if we go through and put the string of I am a fish, save it, execute our code, and we can see then, of course, for both fish instances, we get the I am a fish printing back. But it'd be very good if it could dynamically print out our name and type. Obviously, I could force it to print the name and type, but if I start dynamically adding more attributes, then that's not going to work terribly well for me. I'm going to have to go through and change my dunder string method. So this is the only bit that becomes a little bit complex. We can go through and create ourselves a variable, and we can give that variable a name. Let's go through and maybe call it attributes for our attributes. And we can have this being assigned then the value and vars from the item itself. So that's just a list of variables that are associated with the instance. Now, in itself, that's not going to be very useful. So we're going to convert our attributes to a string. So I'm just calling another variable attributes underscore s equals. And with this, then, we're going to go through and specify that we're taking a dictionary of keys and values and creating a string. But for each item in the dictionary, we want to separate them by a comma and a space. We use the join function to join the separate elements into a string. And we're going to go through and specify inside of join, we're going to use an F string. So F and open up our quotes. And we're going to take each key, have an equals, and then take each value. So a dictionary has a set of key value pairs, but we're going to then put each key and value separated by an equals. And we're going to run through to populate them by iterating through each key and value, K and V, in then our attributes dot items. Dot items then is just returning each of the key value pairs. So that's as difficult as it gets for this. But then, of course, we need to return our string. So we can then run our return statement. Again, looking at an F string. And we're going to go to our fish class. And then we open up the parentheses so we can then go through and get our attributes underscore string, attr ibs underscore string. Once we've got that, let's save that. So we've got our attribute string and then go through and print this. Oops, I forgot to put the variable inside of our brace brackets. So let's move back into our editor and put brace brackets around then our attributes underscore string. Save this. Now it should look a lot better. So we can see that we get Wanda being an angelfish. We get Nemo being a clownfish. And as I say, this is dynamic. So if we start adding additional attributes in, so we can go to fish 1 and maybe add in an age for Wanda. I don't know how old angelfishes get, but let's say that Wanda gets to 11 years. And we can say for Nemo, maybe he gets to 9 years. Save our code, execute it. And now, of course, we're going to be seeing the extra attribute and value of age. So this is giving you the idea of how we can make use of objects using namespaces. We have here fish 1 and fish 2, but we can then keep the name, type and age separate because it's associated either with fish 1 or fish 2.
All that is left to say is thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then you are probably sadder than I first thought. For more of this drivel, please subscribe, like and comment to @TheUrbanPenguin.